Alright, so let's dive into some really interesting updates coming out of New York that I just have to break down for you guys. The Knicks are making some moves that, honestly, not many people were expecting, and it all starts with their approach to the center position. According to reports that came across from Steph Bondi over at the New York Post, the Knicks are bringing in multiple centers for workout. Now, before we even get into name, think about what this says about New York's mindset. They're clearly looking to add size, depth, and versatility to their training camp roster. They already have a stacked roster, but the team is showing they're not satisfied. They want more competition, they want more talent, and they want insurance in case injuries pop up. So, who are we talking about? The Knicks are reportedly bringing in Alex Len and Trey Jemison III. Now, Alex Len is a veteran. You know what you're getting there. But I think the more intriguing name here is Trey Jemison III, who has upside and potential that could be tapped into if he lands in the right situation. And there's more. According to NBA insider Ian Begley, Thomas Bryant is also on the Knicks' radar. Remember Bryant? He's the same guy who gave New York fits when he was with Indiana in the Eastern Conference Final. He's a proven big man, a 28-year-old who's still in his prime, and by all accounts, he impressed the Knicks during recent open gym workout. That's the type of player that could immediately contribute if the need arises. Now, let's break this down further. The Knicks can bring up to 21 players into training camp, but currently, they only have 12 on guaranteed contract. That means there's plenty of room to experiment, and that's exactly what they're doing. Alex Len, Trey Jemison, Thomas Bryant, 3 different players, 3 different styles, 3 different skill sets. They're trying to see who fits best with their current rotation. And when you think about the Knicks' depth at center, it's already elite. We're talking Karl Anthony Towns, Mitchell Robinson, Ariel Hukporty, and even Gerson Yabusele, who can slide into that front court when needed. So, where does Bryant fit? Right now, there isn't a rotation spot available for him, but having him as a potential insurance plan absolutely makes sense. Here's the thing. I love what the Knicks are doing here. Adding more size to a training camp roster isn't just about having body. It's about creating competition. It's about making sure every player knows they have to earn their spot. And let's be real, having more options at center can only help coach Mike Brown plan for contingencies. Injuries happen, matchups change, and games get messy. You want to have multiple players ready to step in. And when you look at these workouts, you can kind of read between the lines. Alex Len brings experience, sure, but at this point in his career, he's not really moving the needle. Thomas Bryant and Trey Jemison, now those are players who could realistically make an impact, either immediately or over time. Bryant with his proven ability, Jemison with his developmental upside. But the Knicks aren't stopping there. While they're stacking size, they're also making a shocking decision involving a former player, a guard that Knicks fans remember well. Dennis Smith Jr. is back in New York for workouts, competing for a training camp roster spot. Now, this one definitely raised eyebrows. Smith Jr. had his moments in New York before, some highs, some lows, but bringing him in now shows the Knicks are thinking strategically. They want competition, they want someone hungry, and they're willing to give a familiar player a chance to prove he still belongs in the league. It's a bold move, no doubt, and it's exactly the type of story that gets Knicks fans talking. So when you look at all of this together, multiple centers being worked out, a stacked roster, strategic competition, and bringing back a former guard, it's clear that New York is not messing around. They're preparing for training camp with purpose, depth, and a mindset that every spot counts. And that's exactly what a team aiming for the playoffs should be doing. The Knicks aren't just adding players, they're creating a culture of accountability, opportunity, and readiness. And I have to say, from everything I'm seeing, I like the approach. They're being thorough, they're being smart, and they're leaving no stone unturned as they prepare for what's shaping up to be a very competitive season. Now, let's switch gears and talk about another headline that's been getting a lot of attention. And honestly, it's kind of shocking. The Knicks are bringing in a former player to work out. That's right, Dennis Smith Jr., a guard that Knicks fans remember very well, is back in New York trying to earn another shot in the NBA. According to Steph Bondi from the New York Post, Smith Jr. is working out for his former team this week, nearly 5 years after his last stint with the Knicks ended. This is a player who has had an interesting journey, a career full of ups and downs, challenges, and moments that have tested him both on and off the court. Dennis Smith Jr. spoke to the New York Post about his time in New York and reflected on what went wrong, what was out of his control, and what he learned from the experience. He said that a lot of the obstacles were beyond his control: fan reactions, personal hardships like his stepmom passing, and even injuries like a slipped disc in his back. But what really stood out was how he framed it. It's all about how you respond to those challenges. Smith Jr. emphasized bouncing back, taking the punches, and keeping moving forward. Lessons that shaped him into the player he is today. That kind of mindset is exactly what the Knicks are likely looking for when they invite a veteran back for a workout. Now, Dennis Smith Jr. has always been known for his athleticism, but over the last few years he's reinvented himself as a defensive specialist. He's had stints in Charlotte and Brooklyn, where he focused on that aspect of his game, and last season he played in Spain for Real Madrid. Unfortunately, an injury cut his time there short, so he essentially had a year off from competitive basketball. But even with that break, he's still 27 years old, still talented, and still has the tools to contribute at the NBA level. And from what I've seen and what's been reported, he's been impressing people. Even at a pro run with Trae Young just a couple of weeks ago, Smith Jr. was going off. Trae Young himself reportedly said that Dennis Smith Jr. deserves to be in the NBA, and honestly, I agree with that. Here's the twist though. While I respect everything about Dennis Smith Jr., the Knicks don't really need another guard right now. Their backcourt is already deep and talented, so it's hard to justify adding him to the roster when their bigger need is at the front court, specifically more size and versatility. That's why all of these workouts with centers like Thomas Bryant, Trey Jemison III, and even Alex Len make so much sense. You want to build a roster that can withstand injuries, that can compete at a high level night in and night out. Every season in New York, injuries are almost inevitable, and more often than not, it's one of the big men who goes down. So having a backup plan, or even a backup for your backup, is smart, strategic, and exactly what a team with championship aspirations should be doing. And let's talk about those aspirations for a second. The Eastern Conference is wide open this year. The Knicks have a roster that's not only competitive, but also has the right mix of talent, youth, and experience. With the right adjustments, a veteran big man, maybe a high-upside center, this team could make a serious run. FanDuel, the official sportsbook sponsor for this channel, has the Knicks at plus 550 to win the NBA Cup this season, right behind the Oklahoma City Thunder at plus 450. That's huge, and it shows how serious New York's championship window is right now. But getting there means taking step-by-step measures, adding the right pieces, and trusting the front office to make smart decisions. Leon Rose and the Knicks management are fully aware of this, and it seems they're approaching the off-season and training camp with precision. So here's the takeaway. Dennis Smith Jr. deserves respect for his perseverance and for continuing to chase his NBA dream. But for the Knicks, the bigger picture is about balance, size, depth, and preparing for every eventuality. They're doing everything they can to build a team that's not only competitive, but ready to compete for a championship. And from what I've seen, I fully support their vision. This is a team that's serious about winning, serious about improving, and serious about putting themselves in the best position possible to take it all the way. So that's where we are. The Knicks are working out multiple centers, evaluating a former guard, and carefully plotting their path toward a championship run. And honestly, if they keep making smart, calculated moves like this, there's no reason why this shouldn't be a very exciting season for New York. Nobody saw this coming. Let me tell you something. When I turned on First Take this morning, I wasn't expecting to hear this kind of news about the New York Knicks. And yet, the entire panel, Stephen A., Monica McNutt, and even J.J. Redick filling in, couldn't stop talking about this shocking update. The Knicks, in a move that literally nobody predicted, are bringing back a former Knick who most of us assumed was gone forever, completely out of the organization's plan. That's right, the discussion on the show centered around Dennis Smith Jr. Now, you have to understand, this comes at a time when New York is already making headlines. The Knicks just signed Malcolm Brogdon, which caught a lot of fans off guard. Add that to the fact that Landry Shamet was also signed, and you have a point guard situation that suddenly feels crowded and confusing. Remember, the Knicks right now only have the ability to add one more veteran's minimum deal. So when the news broke that Dennis Smith Jr. was working out for the Knicks this week, everybody at the First Take desk raised their eyebrows. And here's the thing, this wasn't just a casual mention. The conversation was framed around whether the Knicks are truly committed to reshaping this roster with depth and versatility, or if this is simply a flyer on a player from the past. Stephen A. in particular went off about how surreal it is that Smith is even in this position. We're talking about a former lottery pick, someone who at one point was supposed to be the future of the franchise. Back when Kristaps Porzingis was dealt away in a move that many considered a franchise reset, the headline piece the Knicks got in return was Dennis Smith Jr. That was supposed to be the start of something new, and instead, it became one of the most disappointing stretches in recent Knicks history. But on the show, they broke it down further. Smith, after bouncing around the league and eventually heading overseas to play with Real Madrid, is now looking for a way back to the NBA. The panel mentioned league sources confirming that he only appeared in 2 games overseas. And if you think back, Chris Haynes had already reported earlier in the year that DSJ left Madrid with the intention of finding another shot in the league. Now, here we are, and the Knicks of all teams are the ones giving him that workout. And the First Take crew didn't just stop there. They revisited his early career, his rookie season in Dallas, where he averaged over 15 points, 5 assists, nearly 4 rebounds, and looked like a star in the making. He was athletic, explosive, and many thought he'd form one of the league's most dangerous backcourts, alongside Luka Doncic. But when Luka took over the primary ball-handling duties, Smith struggled to adjust. He wasn't a strong shooter, so his efficiency dipped. And suddenly, the Mavericks felt like they could move on from him. That's how he ended up in New York. So this is where the shock factor comes in. First Take made it clear. Nobody in their right mind expected Dennis Smith Jr. to get another shot with the Knicks. Not after what happened the first time. His numbers in New York were underwhelming. His role diminished, and eventually he was traded away in the Derrick Rose deal. That trade, ironically, helped snap the Knicks' playoff drought. For fans, DSJ was supposed to represent hope, but instead, his time became a chapter to forget. And yet, here we are. The Knicks, a team with real playoff expectations, a team building around Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, and OG Anunoby, are revisiting the DSJ experiment. That was the tone of the conversation on First Take. Confusion, surprise, but also curiosity. Could this really work? Could Dennis Smith Jr. carve out a role as a defensive-minded guard off the bench? Something he's quietly built his reputation on in recent years? Or is this nothing more than a camp body, a workout to see what's left in the tank? Because here's the thing, when we look back at Dennis Smith Jr.'s time with the Knicks, it's almost symbolic of an entire era that felt doomed from the start. And this was a big part of the conversation on First Take. They pointed out that no matter what he did on the floor, no matter how hard he tried, the Knicks still found ways to lose games. His best highlight moment in New York came in that matchup against the San Antonio Spurs, when he and Mitchell Robinson connected on a fast break alley-oop. DSJ threw it off the glass, Mitch threw it down, and for a brief second, it felt like the Knicks had actually found something, a potential long-term answer at both the point guard and center position. Knicks fans remember that play because it was a glimpse of hope, but the reality that followed was far less promising. The panel on First Take dug into that memory and contrasted it with what came next. The Knicks, fresh off failing to land Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in free agency, decided to pivot and signed Elfrid Payton. And here's where the criticism poured in. Stephen A. didn't hold back. He said straight up that Payton was never the answer. Payton brought little to the table for a team already starving for shooting and creativity. Meanwhile, Smith was left in limbo, stripped of trust and stripped of opportunity. On the show, they reminded viewers that even though Smith's numbers weren't special, he was still more dynamic than Payton. And yet, the franchise leaned on Payton anyway. The result? A stagnant offense, a frustrated fan base, and eventually the Knicks turning to Derrick Rose just to keep their playoff hopes alive. And that playoff run became a turning point. Rose, despite not being built to play 30 minutes a night anymore, had to carry that weight because Payton was played off the floor almost immediately. On First Take, they remembered that moment, the Garden roaring as the Knicks finally won a playoff game after 7 years. Fans flooded the streets, partying like they had won a championship, because that's how deep the drought had cut into the city. But while the joy was unforgettable, the truth was undeniable. Dennis Smith Jr. had no part in it. He had already been shipped out, packaged with a second-rounder in the trade that brought Rose back. His chapter with the Knicks closed right as the franchise finally started to climb out of the darkness, and the decline didn't stop there. The panel broke down the numbers. Smith's rookie season in Dallas was the high point. 15 points, 5 assists, energy, explosiveness. After that, Detroit, Portland, Charlotte, Brooklyn. A nomadic career filled with brief stops and fading opportunities. By the time he landed overseas in Madrid, many assumed his NBA story was finished. And yet, here we are, with the Knicks offering him a workout, reopening a door most thought had been sealed shut. But First Take didn't just focus on DSJ. They tied it to another guard who recently made news, Cameron Payne. The conversation shifted to Payne because, in a way, his story mirrors the path Smith wishes he could take. Payne rebuilt his career, clawed his way back into the league, and became a valuable spark plug for multiple teams. And now, according to reporting, Payne will not be returning to the Knicks next season. That led to an interesting debate. Would the Knicks be better off giving Payne another chance, a proven veteran presence, instead of gambling on a player like Smith, who has struggled for years to find consistency? They laid out Payne's Knicks stats: 7 points per game in about 15 minutes of action, 40% shooting from the field, 36% from deep. Nothing spectacular, but moments of real energy, moments where you could feel his spark lift the team. The panel emphasized his role as a chemistry guy, someone every locker room appreciates. Monica McNutt even said, "If you're a team trying to compete, why wouldn't you take a flyer on Payne as your 15th man? He's not here to cause problems, he's here to bring energy." And that's the difference. Payne knows his role, embraces it, and has shown he can still impact winning in short bursts. So the contrast was clear. Dennis Smith Jr., fighting for another chance, trying to prove he can rewrite his story in New York. Cameron Payne, a player who has already proven his ability to reinvent himself and contribute to winning situations. And on First Take, that sparked the larger question. Are the Knicks making the right call here? Should they invest their time and energy into a player from the past who's still searching for his place? Or stick with someone like Payne, who's already established as a reliable role player? He's the type of player every locker room values: unselfish, team first, and always willing to play for the name on the front of the jersey rather than the one on the back. That kind of mentality is rare in today's NBA, and it's exactly why Cameron Payne earned so much respect during his time in New York. His performance in Game 1 of the Knicks' first-round matchup against the Pistons was proof of that. He stepped up when it mattered most, providing an immediate spark and steadying presence that helped set the tone for that series. Payne didn't just fill minutes. He left an impact, showing that when his number is called, he's ready. Moments like that are why so many fans, myself included, will always look back on his Knicks stint with appreciation. He embodied what it means to represent the city, competing with heart and pride every time he hit the floor. That's something you can't quantify with a box score, but it's felt by teammates, coaches, and the fan base. At the same time, the organization had to make a tough call, and moving forward with Malcolm Brogdon was ultimately the right decision. Brogdon's track record speaks for itself. A steady double-digit scorer, someone who contributes across the board with rebounds and assists, and a player who can control the pace of a game. Even though his three-point shooting dipped last season, there's little doubt it'll climb back closer to his career average. More importantly, he brings defensive toughness and the ability to organize the offense at a higher level, which is exactly what the Knicks were looking for at that position. It doesn't diminish what Payne brought, nor does it erase the excitement he gave this team. Rather, it highlights the difficult balance front offices face between rewarding effort and upgrading talent. For Payne, this chapter with the Knicks may be closed, but the respect remains. He proved that he belongs in this league and that competitive fire will continue to earn him opportunity. Now, the focus shifts to what comes next. The buzz around Dennis Smith Jr. has caught many by surprise, and while it's unclear how far those conversations will go, it adds yet another layer of intrigue as camp approaches. Could he find his way back into the fold, maybe even through Westchester? Or is this simply another storyline that fizzles out? Time will tell. As for Payne, I'll always be rooting for him. His energy, his resilience, and his commitment to the team-first approach are qualities every fan can admire. Here's hoping his career continues to thrive, wherever the next stop may be.